SaferWatch and law enforcement. SaferWatch is a powerful tool that enhances public safety by improving communication between law enforcement and the community it serves. Through the SaferWatch platform, agencies can send real-time emergency and non-emergency alerts, keeping residents and visitors informed about critical incidents, safety advisories, and community updates. Additionally, SaferWatch allows the public to report crime tips, suspicious activities, and threats, providing law enforcement with valuable intelligence. SaferWatch tips have led to the prevention of school shootings, stopped sexual predators, caught wanted fugitives and burglary suspects, and has even prevented suicides. This easy-to-use two-way communication tool ensures faster response times and helps protect the community proactively. By empowering both citizens and law enforcement, SaferWatch fosters a safer, more connected community. For more information, visit SaferWatchApp.com or download the free SaferWatch app on iOS or Android. Welcome to The Tactical Pause, the official podcast of the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association. I'm John Creamer, Deputy Executive Director of FDSA. Each episode, I sit down with law enforcement thought leaders to tackle critical issues shaping the future of public safety. Together, we'll explore key topics that empower law enforcement professionals to navigate challenges, lead with confidence, and advance their careers. Take a pause, gain valuable insights, and lead your career with purpose. Thanks for listening. And today, my guest is Captain Kelly Burke, a good friend of mine, mentor, leader. Kelly retired from the Tallahassee Police Department after 25 years, and Kelly has gone on to do many, many great things for lots of men and women in the first responders field. And I brought Kelly on today, or asked Kelly to come on today to talk about his faith and to talk about the importance of a chaplain's program in law enforcement and for first responders. So, Kelly, thank you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. Glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here. It's a blessing. So for our listeners, Kelly, I mean, outside of Tallahassee, most people may not know your background. So how did you get into law enforcement?
Try to make a long story short, but the short answer is I grew up here in Tallahassee and went to Florida State, majored in business, but was a little bit kind of like, I just don't believe I can sit behind a desk. So when I was working with my stepdad, who was a firefighter, as you and I have a connection in that arena as well. But my stepdad was a firefighter, and I was working with him between classes and on the days I didn't have classes, et cetera. And I was just still a little struggling, I knew I needed to get out of school. So I, graduated and thought about maybe law school or something else. And I said, no, I need to do something else. And the city was hiring, and he was, like I said, with the fire department. He goes, look, your city's a good, stable job, and your retirement and health insurance will be, and boy, did that ever prove true later for me in life. But anyhow, so long story short, had another dear family friend that I've known all my life. That family's known me all my life, that was a police officer, and had another dear friend from my church that was a lieutenant up there, and they talked to me and did a ride along, and I said, this would be what young man doesn't grow up playing cops and robbers, at least at some point?
I know.
And your favorite TV, mine was Mannix way back in the day.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so I did. I rode one night and just kind of thought, wow, didn't get hired the first time.
You remember who you rode with?
Yeah.
Who was it?
Burke Clayton.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Another legend at TPD.
Another legend, exactly.
I didn't know that.
Yes, sir. We're longtime family friends. The reason my family is in Tallahassee partly is the Clayton family. So,
really?
Yeah,
okay.
And that's another long story. But anyhow, but then when I got turned down, it just kind of forged a determination in me, and I knew why. I mean, it was during a tenure of, they had minority quotas, different things like that. There were no white males in the class that I didn't get in on, so there you go.
Yeah.
But I applied the next time, and it was 50-50, and I got one of those 50% spots. And
what year was that?
1982.
Okay.
Yes, I'm old.
No, you're not. I'm not going to tell you how old I was, but go ahead.
Yes, sir.
So you get on, you start on patrol, and then what happens?
Did patrol for a few years, I think 3 exactly, or a little bit more, and then I will tell you it was the grace of God, and when I say the name, I'll tell you why, but Sergeant Billy Hudson. Yeah. But I was able to get off the streets within 3 years and go to the burglary unit, and that really put me on a good path, because from there, within a year, I don't know the ins and outs and the whys and the hows. All I know is that we had the joint, another thing that you and I have in common, the robbery task force. I mean, some great days. But it was time to put new folks in. And even though I was, as former Sheriff Larry Campbell said, you gave us a green rookie over here this time. And I was very green, 1 year of burglary experience and only 3 years on the road. Tom Coe, I think, and some others put me in.
Yeah.
And I got that, and that's really when everything really started to click in a good way for me, because during that same time of robbery task force, which is, as you know, probably one of the best assignments you can get at that level.
Hands down.
And then I got on TAC, our SWAT team, during that same tenure, and never looked back. And once I'd been in for a few years, especially once I got it, I told this numerous times to people, because back in the day, robbery task force, if there was a robbery, I mean, if there was something they called a robbery, you got called out and you had to go, and you had to put on your coat and tie.
Right.
And, but at the same time, it kind of, you didn't need to work off-duty jobs. You were working plenty. And but at the same time, I loved it. I just and then got on TAC and just, it was fun.
So, speaking of robbery, so back then there were 4, right?
Correct.
4 investigators, 2 from the city police, Tallahassee Police, 2 from the Leon County Sheriff's Office.
Correct.
And we all got sworn in under the sheriff. And for me, it was also Sheriff Campbell, who was grew up down the street from my dad, and they were in the Marines together.
Oh, wow.
So when he closed the door in his office, I got talked to as well. And but it was probably, I would have to say it was probably the most fun I ever had, because every case is a violent felony. And I know that sounds weird to our listeners, but if you're a police officer or a deputy sheriff, you want to be in the thick of it. And you want to be chasing bad guys, not somebody that did a gas skip or a dine and dash. You want to go after the real fish. So it was a magical part of my career too. And then it opens you up to how other agencies work, and then you start building networks of friends and things like that.
You hit the nail on the head right there, I believe. When you have one of those, and that was a high-profile position, if you will, because there is a robbery task force, so you got 2 agencies looking at you and all the supervision, and then you're working cases that people are interested in too.
Right.
I had at least 1 robbery homicide during my tenure there, and I did 3.5 years in robbery task force. And Sheriff Boone was actually the sheriff that I got sworn in under. Sheriff Campbell was the undersheriff at the time, or I think a major maybe when I first started, but he was over in the CIB we worked 1 year. We'd work over at the sheriff's office, and then we'd move office and everything over to the other one.
Yeah.
Had the hotline phone in there.
The bat phone.
The bat phone.
So for our listeners, TAC is in Tallahassee. That's the Tactical Apprehension and Control Team.
Correct.
So when you got on TAC, what team, if you will? So, or explain the organization of TAC or how it was back then. What elements were there?
TAC is Tactical Apprehension and Control. It is what some people call SWAT. It is our SWAT team. And back then we had entry team element, a sniper team element, and then our negotiators. And that was pretty much, and then we added logistics and a few other things as time went on. But then I went on as a sniper, but then fast forward a few years, again after robbery, my next assignment was in the old street narcotics unit, crack squad, things like that. And while I was there, my sergeant was also the entry team leader. So every time the entry team trained, I got to go. So I was dual trained for a couple of years as well, and got three days a month of training. Once with the sniper team, once with the entry team, and once with the joint train.
Was that Terry Now, or who was your sergeant?
Tom Murray was my sergeant.
Okay, I didn't know that either. Okay,
yes.
All right.
Yep.
So, how did that set you up for the rest of your career?
Well, number one, you're talking about just solid. And I remember my stepdad's conversation was like, we'll get in it, and because he built houses on the side, and so he's like, and I thought about that, nice way to make a living, I guess. And but 2 things happened. One, the economy tanked back in the 80s and kind of took a lot of the luster out of that venture. But then he just said, well, get in, get vested where you have some retirement, have you some insurance, things like that. And then if you can build up a little next egg, maybe then you want to get out and slowly. And but as you know, and we could tease our dads and stepdads and our brothers about, but police work and fire department is not the same thing.
Not at all.
Not at all.
No.
I love them, but it's not the same thing.
No. It's and what Kelly's talking about is my dad worked for the Tallahassee Fire Department too with Kelly's stepdad, and my dad was there from 66 to 96. And when was Eddie Earl there?
Ooh, I know from the 60s to I think 93.
Okay. It's okay.
I think 93.
That's a different breed of people.
Ooh, and especially back then.
Yeah.
And I used to love to go by there.
Yeah.
When I was on shift, and especially go by them because they know how to cook and eat.
Yeah. Yeah. They had the camaraderie was fantastic.
And they're lifelong friends,
Yeah.
you know. And they're more like brothers, I say, in a way, because, man, they'll fuss and scrap and
fight.
get mad at each other. But at the same, my house, the house I live in to this day, like I said, my stepdad was fire department, then he worked construction on the side and eventually got his own residential contractor's license. But his friends, if you will, at the fire department built my house. And the way that worked is when it was his turn for one of his kids, they all came together, and the one that knew how to do tile work did tile work. The one that knew how to be an electrician was an electrician. The one that was the plumber, well, that was my stepdad, was the plumber. On and on it went, you know, but we just had and then you returned the favor when it was the next firefighter's turn to have a home built for their family.
Like a tribe.
Yeah, like a tribe. Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that goes, I think there's a theme that's going to come out, and that goes back to fellowship, you know, brotherly love and things like that started the police department, fire department, and then there's a thread that runs through your life about the same thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So when I met you, so I worked with your wife at Gaffer's.
Okay.
Gaffer's, for the listeners, was a department store that was in the Southeast. And they got bought out by Dillard's, I think. But I was a teenager, and I was their stock boy and drapery and hardware and all that kind of stuff. So Nancy was there, Jane Duke was there, and a few other ladies. So, and I think that's when I first met you. And then I came to work at TPD in 1992. And I think you were the patrol coordinator right around then?
Right around then, yes, sir.
And then from there, you took off. You got promoted to sergeant?
Not too long after that, I think, yeah.
A sergeant, lieutenant?
Patrol coordinator.
Yeah.
That's it, patrol coordinator.
Yeah.
That position served me and the other two that held it pretty well. We all wound up.
Yeah.
Again, just putting yourself in a place where you're in a place where people see what you're doing.
Right.
And that can go good or bad. But for me,
it also got you out of your comfort zone, didn't it? Because you were working narcotics and you had to get a haircut.
Absolutely. There you go. That brings another good point. Now, forgive me if I'm rambling.
You're not rambling.
Off topic for you, but I will tell you, I remember distinctly getting a phone call. I was across the street. Our vice unit was across the street at the time. Said, hey, the LT got me and said, hey, Chief wants to see us. I'm like, oh boy. And there's usually not good things, but seriously, they called me over there, and then they did. They kind of asked me to put in for that, and I thought, interesting. And on the way back, though, my vice lieutenant, who's one of the best bosses I ever had, kind of told me, he said, they don't ask but once. Don't turn them down. If you do, just know. And he said, plus, I know you love it right here in the vice unit because of, and we did. We had a good unit there, and I was loving that work now, I have to admit. But that could change the next day. One of us gets transferred, one of us gets sick or something terrible. You just can't hang on to what you have.
Right.
And so I left and I went. Yes, administration is not my strong suit. But at the same time, two wonderful things happened during that tenure there. So I'm working with Terry Nowell, who's the patrol admin lieutenant. Number one was the Lozano trial, if you remember that.
I do, yeah.
Terry Nowell and I did the op plan for that thing, believe it or not.
I did not know that.
Yes.
So for our listeners, Lozano was a police officer in Miami-Dade, or the city of Miami, shot a motorist.
Correct.
A motorcyclist. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the first officers to be arrested for that type of use of force. And
the trial it was a change of venue, and they were going to come to Tallahassee to do it. So we developed an op plan, and of course, Lieutenant Nowell took the bulk of it, but mine was all the streets, and I had every street, every intersection, how many barricades we'd have pre-planned, and which ones we had to have an officer, and which ones we could, of course, this is, the mid-'80s, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But that happened, and then also we bought the SWAT team, the TAC team, got our first vehicle. It was an old bread truck, and Lieutenant Now and I, in the driveway of his home, put cabinets in that thing and converted it and made it, an equipment, a big equipment van for the team. But just great way to spend time.
Yeah. The beauty of being involved with the administration, you get to see how the agency works.
Oh, yeah.
When you're on patrol, you really only see one side. You're the end user,
right?
And you don't really get to see how the sausage is made. And for me, when I worked in internal affairs and I worked in the public information office, to me, that's when my administrative eyes kind of opened up. I'm like, oh, I didn't know they thought like this. I didn't know this happened behind the scenes, and that's what opened doors for me as well. But
it's not much different from your field training program.
Yeah.
There's field training officers that you ride with, and you go, oh, this is how you do this. This is how you think about that. This is what you look for. And there's some that you ride with and go, oh, no, I will not be that kind of officer. And I think you can do the same thing with your leaders, your supervisors, your mentors, and all. You can find the ones that that's a career path, and that's the kind of officer I want to be. And those are kind of like, no, that's not my style.
Yeah. So let me fast forward. You made sergeant, and I think they weren't you 4 to 2? It was a terrible schedule when you first got promoted, wasn't it?
No, at first I got promoted and just put on midnight shift and all, but then, if I'm remembering correctly, and then I did that, and then we did a rotating shift, and I was down in Southeast for a while, but then I went to the PIO's office as a sergeant because Phil Kirchhoff was coming out, and I went there, but I was only there a year because we had a shortage of quote full sergeants on the street, and Chief Coe at the time came in one day and said, this is not working, because we had some actings and just sometimes there were some critical decisions that weren't exactly all they wanted them to be. He says, I'm serious. We're not having so many in-house sergeants. We're putting them back on the street. And he goes, to show you I'm serious, I'm giving up mine. And he handed me back to patrol, which turned out to be, again, just God's favor and just an abundant blessing, because out of that, I got the party patrol. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The first official one. Now, we had overtime pools for party patrol for Florida State and Florida A&M.
This is back when Bowden was there and we were winning.
Oh, yeah.
And every Friday, Saturday, Sunday Tallahassee was rocking.
Absolutely. And my shift for that fall season was every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night from 4 o'clock in the afternoon till technically you got off at 2, but very rarely did we get off at 2. It was usually 4 to 4.
Yeah.
And but again, everybody's watching the party patrol. Everybody's watching the cases that you're making. We're also out there when a lot of the hot crimes are going down, and we get to jump into those. And from that, wound up getting promoted to lieutenant, because did good on our process that we had that year.
Yeah.
So.
And you were in Tallahassee, we called the lieutenant that's on duty is the watch commander, and most agencies have a watch commander or shift commander. You did that, and I remember you migrated back to investigations.
Well, I was patrol lieutenant on midnight shift for 2-3 years. I mean, for a while, and then from there, I was able to go back to the vice unit, which I dearly loved.
Home, and then captain. You made captain,
and then captain.
And back then, were you the only patrol captain, or did you have a co-captain?
No, I was one of 3.
Okay.
Yeah, one of 3.
All right.
And it was me and the 2 ladies for a little while, and it was me and 2 of the other guys for a while. Yeah. So, and then I went to CID.
And at one point, from my experience, because I was an officer or an investigator, and we were on the TAC team together, and you became the TAC team commander. You took over for Nowell, and young Connell ran it, and it was probably one of the best times of my life too. Not just robbery, but looking back then. But I always thought you were going to be the police chief at some point. And I think maybe you felt a calling about that too, but there's a stronger calling, right?
Wow. I won't say that I ever really entertained the thought that early, but yes, you fast forward a little bit, and there's at least a consideration.
Yeah.
And by that I just simply mean, and you're right, I went from the watch office, then went to Vice, and while I was in Vice, of course, you've got the Vice unit, you've got the Intel unit. By that time, I was our TAC commander, and just had you, Dale Green, Chris Connell, a lot of tremendous guys surrounding me, and making that team as good as it was, and all, and just absolutely loving life. And then we kind of, at one point, we did have an expansion, and that's when we started with the whole Homeland Security thing and special operations and special investigations, and had some of that for a good while as well. So it was great. But then, they move people around sometimes, and I got moved around, but then wound up as a captain in patrol, and then finished out my career in CID. And I guess to your point is that I was in my 25th year when I got accepted to the FBI National Academy, and I thought about going. In fact, filled out the application and everything. But long story short, and don't know how deep you want to get, but my wife had some significant health issues and had actually had a heart transplant during my time in Vice, going back that far. But still, when you have that, you take immunosuppressant drugs all the rest of your life. And, and that's what stopped me is I said, what am I doing going off to go to the FBI National Academy for 3 months when my wife, I'm leaving everything with her. The kids, everything is left with her. And, I think there was one trip home back then. They could go up there one time and you could meet halfway one time or something like that.
Yeah.
But quite honestly, the Lord made it abundantly clear to me the night before I was supposed to go and sign my paper with the SAC out of Jacksonville, FBI SAC out of Jacksonville to go. My wife had a doctor's appointment that day, and some doctor's appointments are a little more real than others where, and the doctor, and I'm sure they meant well and were just trying to help her, but they just hit her with that reality. You do understand you have a terminal disease, right? Because sometimes she would just be feeling so good, and they would just kind of remind her that don't be, you guys don't need to be the people that when we retire, we're going to go and do this and that and the other, because y'all need to do what you want to do now. That, and just watching her that day, she's telling me that. I was working, we met for lunch after the doctor's appointment, and that, and quite honestly, some other introspection and prayer that I had, just, what am I doing? And I just let it go, if you will. In fact, that's really what I felt the Lord told me. He said, let it go.
Yeah.
And I let it go, and I had my pushback. I'm like, but, God, this is my platform. I'm the Christian police officer at TPD that's got the wife with the heart transplant. And it was. I had speaking opportunities. I had other opportunities. We had recognition, if that means anything and all. And I don't mean it like that I'm anything, but just gave me something to do and just a lot of activity. Of course, when Dale was killed, one of the highest honors of my life was speaking at his service. And again, just opens doors and does things for you that are just nothing that you planned or work for. It's just extra fruit that you get just because of it. We let it go. And then shortly after that, after I made up my mind in my interview with the chief, letting them know that I was going to turn it down, I didn't understand it at the time, but he did. He said, you just retired. And I said, no, I didn't. But I understood what he meant in time. And it was a few months later, I was gone. And now I was out at my church, working out at my church.
You were the Christian guy. There's a handful of people like you. Like you mentioned earlier when we were talking.
The God Squad, I heard that we were called.
You, Greg Adams, Billy Hudson, Chief Rebel, Danny,
Oscar Brandon.
Yeah, Oscar, Danny Jeter.
There were several.
A host of other people that just when you walked in your room, we sat up a little straighter. You know what I mean? Like, okay, thank you, Lord.
Some were a little more vocal than others. Some were a lot quieter and behind the scenes. But again, because of the notoriety and the platform I'd been given, I was a little more vocal about it. And then, of course, when you get a chance to speak at a law enforcement, trust me, everybody's listening and watching. Everybody.
Yeah, no doubt. So you retired from TPD, and then did that lead you down a road in ministry?
I left TPD, went on staff as an assistant pastor at my church, and was doing that for a few years. And then a couple of years into that, though, just feeling, quite honestly, a little frustration because I'm like, for 25 years, I was this guy at TPD that, there's something driving you, something calling you, something to do, and there's some adrenaline, there's this, that. And at the church sometimes it's a little bit more ho-hum and then just some things like, some folks, and I'm not minimizing them at all. Because to everybody, you set your own values on these things. But still, for some folks, what is a big crisis in life doesn't quite rise to the level of what you and I have seen to be a crisis in life and all. But so I was a little frustrated and was honestly, just asking the Lord, like, I just don't I don't understand how 25 years of, because you learn a lot. You learn a lot about people. You learn a lot about yourself. I think you learn a lot about, and then of course Dale's death and so many other things, just define you and refine you and all that. But I was like, that, I almost feel like that, I don't see how that's tying into my ministry now at the church. But then I found, or actually I think it found me, the Billy Graham Rapid Response Team,
right.
Crisis Intervention Trained Chaplains, Disaster Trained Chaplains, and I went to that, and just there's where I knew my life had changed.
Yeah.
Because now I'm a first responder, but it's in natural, and then eventually then that evolved into man-made tragedies and chaos, that the riots and the shootings and law enforcement deaths, etc. But now I'm there not to be the operational guy or to be the commander of anything. I'm there to hopefully provide ministry and come alongside, the men and women in law enforcement and just encourage them, support them, give them a safe place to grieve and to express their fears, frustrations, and anxieties, and hopefully help carry that load with them a little bit. So.
You get called into being a first responder. When you rode along with Berkeley,
Mm-hmm.
when I did my first ride along.
It is a calling.
And you're like,
amen.
I'm supposed to be here.
Yes.
I'm supposed to be right here.
Yes.
And then
a few years in, you really get it one day. It just kind of hits. It's kind of like, oh yeah, this is what I was meant to do.
Right. And then when you get out of it,
oh.
for a while, for a short period of time, you're like, man, I needed a break. And then you get bored.
Yeah.
And I can see what you're saying. Crisis is self-defined, but you're right. After working hostage barricades or, an active shooter at the hospital at TMH or whatever, it's kind of hard to compare. I think Hemingway had a quote about, once you've hunted man, nothing else really matters.
That is absolutely. And I used to hunt before I got on police. After that, after working in Vice and in the robbery unit and all that stuff, and hunting a man, I never had that same desire. I mean, not saying there's anything wrong with it, and I know people do it and love it and all, but it just wasn't for me.
Right. And then God really lit your path. I mean, I think you can look back now and see the thread that ran through it, but the Billy Graham thing, I could see where that would stir your heart and bring you back, because you're now a first responder to first responders. Mm-hmm. And then let's hit pause there and talk about from what you remember, the chaplain program at TPD. I don't remember when that got started.
Mm-hmm. The late 90s, early 2000s, Chief McNeil was there, and Lawrence, our current chief, was there as an officer. But he'd been to seminary. He came back, and he had the idea, and then he and Paul Shedden, Lorenzo Watkins, but Danny Jeter, David Alford, some others, but they started it.
Well, see, that I could see why that would have been a conflict too, because if somebody, because you have a duty as an administrator, captain, whatever. If somebody came to you and said certain things, you would have to balance out your duty to the agency and your duty to the person that just confided in you, and that would be a conflict.
Well, it'd be hard for people
to open up to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you hold a certain level of authority, whatever like that. Now, I don't think it's impossible, but and you do have to have a full disclaimer and disclosure about, okay, if we talk about certain things, we have to know that. So.
Yeah. And we'll be right back. Every day you put your life on the line to protect and serve. Who's protecting you? United Badges Insurance Services operates as a dedicated resource for the first responder public safety community. Serving thousands of first responders, United Badges offers a wide range of products including commercial insurance, group accident and health insurance, and personal insurance such as auto, home, renters, rental properties, vacation properties, boat, motorcycle, RVs, flood, and umbrella. United Badges serves active and retired public safety personnel, public safety agencies, public safety associations, public safety support businesses, and public safety families and friends. Experience the United Badges difference. Call 800-566-5990 or visit unitedbadges.com to request your free insurance quote today. United Badges Insurance Services is a proud strategic partner of the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association. Applicants are individually underwritten by each respective insurance carrier and subject to insurance policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states. Promotional material for descriptive purposes only. Now back to the show. So as that grew and people, just like in police work, just in the chaplain field or in the pastoral field, people move on, they get called out. So eventually that charter group of people that started that moved on to other positions or retired. So at what point did you start getting invited back to TPD? I mean, you never really left, in my opinion, because every time there was a special event or, God forbid, one of us went home, you were always there. You're always there. But at what point, was it under Chief Rebel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and it was after COVID that it really solidified itself. So late 2021.
Okay.
But I mean, we've got a lot of years there to fill in. But just quickly, that I was always the unofficial chaplain, especially when, again, you speak at a law enforcement line of duty death, you kind of get a little bit of a label or whatever you want to call it, one that I would very proudly wear, and I'll accept that mantle and try to do that. It's the greatest honor I think I can ever, especially for people that I loved and cared about so much.
Yeah.
But I can tell you when Dale was killed, and I'm sorry, but I got to chase this rabbit for half a second. I remember exactly. I didn't go home for 2 days after that. Just going and talking to everybody in the department and just trying to look people in the eye and say, look, we've lost one, we're not losing another. It's okay if you're not okay for a day or two or for a season, but at some point we got it. But you have to let us know, and then we have to work on getting you back out there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was just so proud of TPD because I was just watching officers. I mean, I went to a lot of the check-ons back then. I'm sitting there watching officers with just tears streaming down their face, and now they're fixing to go out and answer everything from a bank robbery to a home invasion to a stolen bicycle off the porch to, my kid won't eat his supper. And they did it. And they did it with absolute professionalism. And
you could be grieving. In Tallahassee, what we called a roll call was called check on. So you could be there, you could be raw and real, and the dispatcher's telling the sergeant, hey, we're holding calls.
Right.
And so as a first responder, you have to compartmentalize. And you have to go, because those calls for service don't wait.
But we have to give them that opportunity to let us know if it's just too much. And there's times, defensive tactics training, every now and then you have to say, okay, it's working, I comply. And I just can't do this right now.
Yeah.
We just can't stay there. And we wouldn't leave them there. We wanted to come alongside and help them. But that really lit a fire in me. I'll just tell you, I know my life changed after Dale Green died. And but so I was the unofficial guy, and then had a lieutenant, and the captain was there and would do, things in that capacity, but not as a formal member of the chaplain's corps, just as, again, this guy. Oscar Brandon was kind of the same way. Billy Hudson was, some of those guys were the same way. But then, but after COVID, and there's a law enforcement Bible study that we have on Tuesday mornings that myself and several are part of. But out of that, I got asked by our local sheriff's department to be part of their chaplain cadre, and so I just told Chief Rebel, I said, hey, just want you to know, and I'm probably going to try to help him out. And he goes, well, he says, well, what are you doing for us? And I said, well, that's why I'm talking to you. I want you to know that if TPD ever calls, that's all you have to do. He says, all right, we're calling. And that got us talking. And so we decided to kind of plant our stake at TPD. And I will just tell you, I guess maybe there's a little correlation value in this that, Scripture talks about. There's no greater joy than to know your children walk in truth. And to come back to the agency that I love and the people that I love and the people that poured so much into me, and that I have a chance now to maybe pour into them, and the ones that helped me in some of my deepest, darkest, hardest moments. And maybe now I can, I don't know that there's a more satisfying or fulfilling calling. And don't know that I do a whole lot, but at least we're there and we try. But so in late 2021, Chief kind of threw that out there and said, well, would you consider coming back and providing, officially, and providing some leadership to this and just, a little more. Because that's the thing about chaplaincy is you have to have somebody that has the ability and the authority and the capacity to be set aside, because we do have jobs to do, especially in the first, and sometimes that busyness, and it's all very worthwhile, very needed, very necessary. But if you can just have somebody over on the side that's just there to watch and to observe and to be there just when people need just a little encouragement or just need to kind of run something by somebody or something, it's a beautiful thing. So, so we did that for a little while, and then I finally told him, I said, look, can we just give it an office or something, just because I said it's just weird coming around the department, just walking around like, hey, you want to talk? And, the responses I got. And but so they gave me an office, and, that helps facilitate. And, again, just kind of firms it up a little bit now. And still have we've had 3, but got 2 other guys that are part of our chaplain corps that were there before I was. So, but, again, just to, I'll give you this quote, and might be a little emotional, but one of my other dear friends went through a really bad time. I remember going to sit with him on his back porch. I was gone. I was retired, and I'm talking to him, and just it was bad, and I knew it was bad, and I was worried for him too. And but we're talking, and at some point, he just he made the comment, and this was not a man known for any religious affiliation or faith factor.
Known for stoicism.
There you go. You know what I'm talking about then.
I do.
But anyhow, he just looked at me. He says, I'd rather have you as my pastor than my chief 1,000 times over. That meant the world to me.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, part of when I made that decision to leave TPD and go to the church, that was part of it. The Lord one time says, Kelly, do the math. There's 1,000 people waiting in line to be the next chief of police in Tallahassee. There's only one person that has the opportunity right now to go at your church and be on staff, and that's you. And once the Lord, he has to hit me in the head with a big stick.
Well,
sometime.
we're knuckle draggers, same. And you know how many times has he hit me in the head? You know what I mean? I've worked at a couple other agencies besides TPD, and the ones that I worked at didn't have a program like this. They had chaplains that they used as victim advocates, and but they had no affiliation with us. And there were a couple of really good-hearted people in that program that wanted to assimilate with the officers, but they couldn't. They didn't have an office. Nobody knew them, right. And it was not good. And then another agency I worked at was the same thing. The administration didn't see the need in it.
Right.
But from my experience, having jumped around a lot, I see the need. I see the value. I mean, don't you, in your travels, you've been all over the place too, especially with the Billy Graham Rapid Response Team.
Right.
If somebody were listening to this podcast and they were on the fence, an administrator, a sheriff, a major, or a captain, and they're like, hey, we need to start this, what would you say to them? Oh,
wow. I would say invest now so you don't have to pay some huge consequences. I will tell you, I was part of the Billy Graham Rapid Response Team in 2014 after the riots in Ferguson and all this kind of stuff. And that's when that ministry began developing a law enforcement component of our disaster crisis intervention chaplaincy. And we would go to those areas of the riots. We would go to law enforcement shootings. We'd go to critical incidents and all that stuff. But we also had retreats and all where we invite officers and their spouses, but also sheriffs and chiefs to come, because that's just a different chair to sit in when you're that person at the very top, and it's coming at you from 360 different ways. But I remember the first ones to get it when you start talking to them, because let me tell you again, especially if you have any humanity and decency in you at all, you care about the people that you lead and supervise and that work for you, and watching them crash and burn. Watching them destroy careers sometimes, watching them lose their families sometimes, watching them lose their lives sometimes. That's a gut punch. That's heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
And if we can just maybe invest in them or just give them a resource and just say, hey, there is somebody. And then to your point, I think you're making, if not, I'll try to make it. Again, pastors and clergy and all from outside can come in, but we know the law enforcement world. Law enforcement talks to law enforcement.
That's right. That is my point.
Law enforcement listens to law enforcement. So if you've got the law enforcement background coupled with a faith background, there's a trust factor that comes in there. They may not agree with you, but they'll at least, and I can tell you, I've got some of them, it breaks my heart because I've tried to pour and talk to some that won't get it. Our friend that we were talking about earlier, for the longest time, up until his deathbed, quite honestly, just resisted and pushed off and said, if you need that, I'm happy for you, but don't push that on me. Mm-hmm. But yet, if we don't give them that, then what chance do they have? And we've seen it way too often. And we've seen it not just in the cost of the lives and the careers lost, but also sometimes those are the officers that make the critical mistakes out there that get agency sued or get another officer hurt, which is even worse, or lead to the suicide. I didn't even mention that yet. I mean, it's just we're just people, and we all have a tipping point, a breaking point. None of us are made to do this all by ourselves. Now, I believe that the Lord will give us the power and the strength and the capacity to do anything and everything He calls us to, but He also uses people around us. And if we push them away or turn from them or won't and reject all that, just like if we reject Him, well, then we're left to ourselves. And I promise you, at some point, that'll all come crashing down.
You remember the story about the man on the boat? I mean, the man on the roof?
Mm-hmm.
During the hurricane?
Oh, yeah.
So there's a flood.
Yep.
He's on the roof. Guy comes by on a rowboat, says, hey, get in. He's like, nope, God's going to send somebody to save me.
Right.
And then another boat comes by, says the same thing. Then a helicopter comes over. Hey, we'll hoist you up. We're going to save you. Nope, God's going to save me. He perishes. He goes to heaven. And what's he say? God, I thought you were going to save me. He's like, I sent 3 people to save you. And then he chose his own way.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, and I'm sorry if I cut you off, but just for me, I know what it was like. I can name names and show you faces and of people that were just important for me. It's not great times for me.
Yeah.
And so, I'll get out of the law enforcement arena for just a minute, but even in my faith walk, my pastor, when I was in my teenage years and those early 20s and just, very formative years when you make a lot of mistakes and you're a little bit full of yourself and all that stuff, but still that man, he's long been with the Lord. He died, literally, here's another defining moment for me. He literally died the day after Officer Ponce de Leon was killed in the line of duty, which was my first line of duty death to experience. And I'd been on the job 6 years, I guess. And then my pastor died the next day. 2 bad days.
Yeah.
But, the people, but he, quite often my motivation, if you will, sometimes, if I can just be 1/10 of what he was to me, to somebody else, I think that might be a benefit to him. So,
I used to go to, when I lived here, Northwoods Baptist Church, and John Rickenbacker was the pastor there for years. And he had a saying, he's like, hey, I'm just one beggar trying to show another beggar how to get bread.
That's right.
And that's the older, at the time, I'm like, I don't know what that means, But as I've gotten older, I realize I don't know nothing. But if I can help somebody get out of a hole or something like that, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also the importance of having mentors, and I think it's also the importance of having a program like the chaplain program, because there's usually somebody older and wiser who's been around. There's a reason God's working in their life, and they're trying to give back. But it's up to us to get Pastor on pride to go, hey, I will take that lifeline. Help me out,
Well, I will tell you, as you know, in these last few years at TPD, we experienced another line of duty death.
Yeah.
And I found myself, again, nothing to do with Kelly Burke. Promise you, nothing to do with me except that I had experienced it. But the fact that I had walked through Ernie Ponce de Leon, I had walked through Sergeant Dale Green, who was one of my closest friends and comrades at work especially. I was able to speak some things into that situation to everybody from that officer's family to our TPD family to some citizens, and it's just we're hurt sometimes so that we can help. If you get that.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah,
yeah.
So it's out of that brokenness and out of that hurt and out of that pain that if we'll allow Him, God will do something to strengthen us and to build us back up and to show us, this is the way, walk in it. And then to be able to do that and have at least a hope that, wow, this may be meaning something as much to them as back then something somebody did for me meant to me back then. So
let me ask you a couple of technical questions. You guys have a chaplain fund right now.
Correct.
Now that doesn't fund your whole.
There is no budget for the operations.
Okay.
So in full disclosure, the shortly after the office, they for a while. I was wearing out my old pickup truck, and they gave me one of the old cars. So I do get a car to drive around and all, but there are no expenses. That is used for department-wide.
Yeah. For
members, lose a family member or something. We've helped sometimes with just funeral expenses. We've certainly helped kind of like the victim advocates as well, provide food and things like that, just other resources like that. So that's what that's for. It's not to be used on us or for anything, or for officers, just for fun.
Okay. It's important to know. So if somebody was thinking about starting a chaplain program, I'm with you. I feel like it needs to be independent and have a fund so people can give if they want to give.
I know some agencies have grants.
Yeah.
They'll write a grant and get it.
Yeah.
That'll pay for a lot of their stuff. So.
And here's another, I think it would be a tricky situation, but how do you minister or mentor people that are of a different faith?
Great question. And I will tell you, and as I tell them, I am unapologetically a Christian, a follower of Jesus Christ. That is what I know. That is who I am. But at the same time, grief is grief. Pain is pain. Hurt is hurt. Loss is loss. We can agree on that. Now, I have a distinct path and a way to that, but I can still sit with you in your pain, in your hurt, and just they call it the ministry of presence. But just when somebody's in that place in a moment, sometimes just for eyes to connect for a minute, sometimes just lets people, sometimes they feel like they're having vertigo or something, but now they've got something to connect on to. And then my prayer is always, may they see his love in my eyes, and may they see compassion, and just see, or sometimes just an appropriate touch, the right way. Just again, hey, I know you feel like the world's spinning. It's not. We're right here, and you're not alone.
Yeah.
And again, and then we can help facilitate sometimes, and we have done this where understand you're of this faith, or is there someone in that faith that we can call? Or we know some people and have a resource that we can try on that. It's not used a whole lot. Most people like that will tell us who they want or whatever, and then we can bring them alongside. But at first, again, I'll go back to being an officer on the streets. When you're in that situation, you're wanting somebody to show up. You really don't care what color the uniform is,
That's right.
What kind of badge or star or shield they got or anything. You just want somebody. Sometimes you just want somebody there just so that you're not by. That's why our communications people are so important to us, just to know sometimes. We did the funeral service for one of our dispatchers from back in my day just last week, and just knowing that she was listening on the radio and that was getting you the help, doing everything they could to make sure you had whatever you need. That kind of helps you stay in the fight.
It sure does.
When maybe you want to give up, or maybe you even think you're losing for a minute, but now you can, we're not paid to lose.
That's right. You brought up a couple things, and we're getting low on time, but 4 of our episodes have been directly related to resiliency, mental wellness, mental health, and your episode kind of falls right in line, and it's, for me, the timing is perfect. I think they're still seeing an epidemic of law enforcement suicides.
Mm-hmm.
And to be a law enforcement officer in today's day is lonely. It's probably lonelier than ever before because our society's changed so much, and there's so much scrutiny. And then with permanent shifts, especially permanent 12-hour shifts, you get removed from the world, especially if you're on nights and you never rotate.
You can be pigeonholed.
And you get a little strange, right? And we both know some people that were on nights a little too long.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you have nobody to talk to, and you start you compartmentalize things before, and that doesn't work anymore.
Right.
So what I always felt like is the biggest epidemic facing probably humanity is loneliness, but especially those first responders at night, and I just think it's so important that, what you're doing, that you get out there. And then just to the suicide rate, coming back to that, I just wonder if we could do more as a profession, maybe a rhetorical question, if there's more we could do as a profession to stop that. But you and I know some really good friends that have gone that way in the last few years. And it's painful. And I just wonder if there is something more we could be doing just from your perspective.
Yes is the short answer. What that is, I don't know, but I will tell you, don't know this is exact correlation, but it kind of makes sense a little bit. But I remember during the Summer of Love and all the George Floyd stuff and all that, again, as a retiree, I was getting phone calls from people that loved the Tallahassee Police Department, people that had worked there and all, not other officers, but these were like some of our civilian personnel, some of our victim advocates and all. They would call me like, Kelly, what can we do? And I said, we can love on them, pray for them, encourage them every way we can, and then do what we can. And then for me, again, a door opened. If all of us would just find our way to put our shoulder to the wheel, it's not going to be the same for everybody, but just some, or maybe it's just for that individual officer that or that individual family that has an officer that or just, I'll tell you one of the biggest things we can do, how about voluntary compliance among our citizenry and just, giving some officers some space and some respect that they used to command. And when they don't earn it, there's ways to deal with that. I promise you the good ones in the job don't like that any more than the citizens that complain about it sometimes. But the reality is, I think, to your bigger point, is that God has made us relational. No man is an island unto himself, nor do we need to be. And when you're all by yourself, you're going down.
Yeah.
But if you can just grab onto others and join hands with others and join hearts and minds with others and all, there's strength in there, and there's some compassion and there's some energy in there, and there's some accountability in there that we all need as well. And when we can do that, though, I think it makes it. I mean, because recently in my family, we've experienced some suicide and things like that as well. Not my immediate family, but people that like family to me, and it really just why it just makes no sense. And then the hardest thing for me has just been like, I'm just to the point of being mad. I guess I'm like, why didn't you call me? Give me one more chance to talk to you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, but that's what happens when we get in isolation or we don't take our thoughts, number one, captive to the obedience of Christ, but also take them to trusted elders and others and advisors and friends and all that we know that we can trust. Again, that tact thing. At the time, Chief McNeil asked me one time, he goes, how do we get what y'all have on that team throughout the department? And I told him, I said, sir, with all due respect, I'll tell you, but I said, I don't know that you'll do it or be able to do it, to be honest with you. Of course, he bristled at that a little bit, and I understand. But I said, sir, at least twice a month. For me, there was that little while it was 3 times a month. But I said, and then every call out, every search warrant, every arrest warrant, every special operations, every special mission or whatever like that, me and the guy next to me and the guy behind me and the guy on my right and the guy on my left, or girl, whatever it may be, are absolutely locked in on one mission, and I know I need them, and they know me that they need me. And I have pledged that I am going to do my best. I may fail, but it ain't going to be for lack of trying to be, because I don't want their blood on my hands.
Right.
Nor do they want mine on theirs. I know where maybe we're going with this, but just that forged with fire.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly right.
But there's so much truth in that. And, my boss at Billy Graham used to say, never trust a man that doesn't walk with a limp. And by that, he was just sitting there saying, look, if a man ain't got a limp, ain't got a bruise, ain't got a broke something, he ain't been in the fight.
That's right.
He's never been tested.
Yeah.
But when we've been tested and we know we've been through the test, I mean, you and I can say I've walked through some stuff with John Creamer.
That's right.
And
Likewise,
so John Creamer, it's another level.
Yeah.
Than just another officer out there. And but we have so many of these, but do we take advantage of them? And then I'd also say that for all of us to not be afraid or ashamed to ask people sometimes, are you okay? Again, that was part of my 2 days after Dale was killed. If you're not okay, it's okay for a while.
Yeah.
We can fill the gap. We can do all that kind of stuff. I mean, we did the same thing. We had the honor system on TAC all those years. If you weren't in your right mind, Yeah, if you've been at home and you've been fussing with your wife and now we're going to a domestic barricade, you probably don't need to come because all that comes out in grand jury, all that, and so we have to be responsible. We have to be honorable. We have to do the next right thing, and but mainly caring for one another because we need, maybe one of the greatest satisfactions for me now in this season of life, if I can help just encourage and support the ones that are in the trenches right now. I can't do that. I can't do that job anymore, man. Right. That's the young man's job. But if I can help them, well, then I am doing something.
Yeah.
And so that's reward in itself.
Well, it comes back to what we talked about, that fellowship in the beginning, that the thread that runs through everything. So real quick, there's one phrase that you used to say all the time from the Bible, 2 words.
But God.
There you go. Guys, this is John Creamer saying thanks to Captain Kelly Burke. He's been a mentor, friend, spiritual leader in my life. If you want to know more about Kelly or have questions about chaplain programs, you can email me at jcreamer@fldeputyssheriffs.org, or you can visit our webpage at fldeputyssheriffs.org. Kelly, thank you.
Thank you, brother. Love you, my friend.
Love you, too. Thank you for listening to The Tactical Pause, the official podcast of the Florida Deputy Sheriffs Association. FDSA proudly serves over 25,000 deputy sheriffs across the state with legal benefits, vital training, and financial assistance in times of need. You can listen to previous episodes at fldeputyssheriffs.org or wherever you get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed the show, please leave us a review and encourage your friends, coworkers, and those in the law enforcement community to listen as well. To learn more about the Florida Deputy Sheriffs Association and how we serve those who serve, visit our website at fldeputyssheriffs.org.